Hello, I am Pastor Gerald Stallworth, and welcome to the Selma Community Bible Church Family Matters podcast ministry. At this time, we are have the privilege of having some guests that are willing to share some of the experiences they had in dealing with toxic relationships. Um, we have several questions for them, and the purpose again is to hopefully they can say something that's going to encourage someone else. This is not about trying to expose or put anybody's business in the streets. It is about letting other people know that, hey, look, you're not alone, that you are not the only one that have experienced just, a bad relationship. So again, welcome to everyone. And again, we don't intend to use anybody's name. They say their name if they want to, but they don't have to. We have Dr. Stevens, who's well known in doing podcasts, but we have three young ladies. These are the main guests for this particular podcast. So welcome everyone. We're going to start, and you all can answer it as you see fit. When you were dating, what were the characteristics that you or qualities you were looking for in a genuine relationship?
So I'll go first. So my main thing was if they loved the Lord, like if their whole life was about pleasing God, then I was interested. But I wanted them to be sold out to Christ. So that was my number one thing.
Anyone else?
Well, I've been in two different marriages, and so with the first marriage, I was I think age was a big issue with that. And so during the first marriage, it was just, just looking for someone to be good to me, to treat me right and respect me. But in the second marriage, then that's when I was grounded in the church. And so a God-fearing man, trustworthy, just good at communication skills, just open and honest. I think those were like the main things, and that we had the same goals we wanted to reach. So very similar goal structure, because I know they say that opposite attract, but when you are in a lifelong situation, then you need that. It doesn't work. So I think I was better prepared in the second relationship.
All right, our other guests.
If you don't mind, Pastor Stallworth, could you repeat the question again?
What were you looking for in your initial relationship? What qualities or characteristics were you looking for?
I gotta agree with Miss Tasha and what she said, and I gotta agree with Miss Pam as well. But what I was looking for is mainly with, like I said, a man with godly attributes, because I feel like if he loves God, he'll do right by me as his mate. So mainly true love, a man that's loving, kind, like I said, that shares his father's attributes, which should be God. So if I felt like when all those things come together, then other things can follow behind that needs to be in place as well when it comes to finding a mate. So that's mainly what I look for in a man when it comes to having someone in your life for a very long time, which is marriage. So you can go into it and you like, some of it's surface. I'm sorry, some of it's surfaced at the moment, but sometimes things go along the way. You find out that people really weren't who they proclaimed to be. So I always feel like, action speaks louder than words. You can say things all day long. So if the words are not lining up with the action, then I understand that as well. So you have to know, your self-worth. Do you want to stay in this relationship? You have to question yourself. Do you want to stay in this relationship? There's quite a few things that go on with individuals, each individual, that happens to make it either work or not work. So that's what I mainly look for in a partner.
All right. So when did you all see that this is not what you were expecting?
I would like to reiterate on that. When the person starts to change, they change from how they were when you first met them. I've always felt like honesty is the best policy. If your feelings have changed, things are different, please just let me know. Some people handle things differently from others, but I've come to grips of life that you have to let people be happy in their state where they want to be. So if someone is not happy with you, I feel free to just let them go. So that's my take on that.
Anyone else?
Okay, and for me, like with the going through the first divorce, it was it was a few years, and I really didn't. Things really didn't like just go spiral in the wrong direction until after I was pregnant. Once I got pregnant, I don't know whether it was hormones or just a great awakening. I don't know, but that's when everything just became clear. And I guess when it's more than just you got to think about more than your future. And I think that played a lot in it because when you think about children, you want the best for them. You want to model a relationship that is healthy. And so I think with the first marriage, I think that played into it because I really did. I have a tolerance for some things, and but it's just some things that you just can't cave in on. I mean, we can compromise in a lot of things, but some things you just can't compromise. And with the it's a lot because with the first marriage, it was my first relationship. He was the only one I had ever been with. I held marriage in just with such high esteem. So it really took me back. It really took a lot away from me because I felt like I had put all I could into it and it didn't go anywhere. And so, but I didn't want to let it go because I guess I just had the wrong understanding about marriage and I really wanted it to work. And I just wanted him to be the only person, because I understood that not only was I making vows to him, but I was also making a covenant before the Lord. Now, I wasn't, again, like in the church, like grounded in the church, but those were some values that even from my childhood in church, because we did go to church, that I picked up. And so that was a big part of life to me. And it meant something to me because it meant something to God. So when I stood before him and the Lord and I made that agreement, then I was feeling I had to work that out in my own way and in my own belief system. But by the time I made it to the second marriage, which was like a 15-year or more gap, I had a better understanding about love and what to expect from love, and I had a better understanding about marriage, and I used those years to build myself back and not only just to build myself back, but to understand who I am, and be comfortable in my own me, or my own skin.
Other guests? Anyone else?
Yes, sir. So, can you just kind of repeat that question again so that I can
Well,
make sure I address
you
correct?
know, when we were seeking marriage or a serious relationship, what qualities were you looking for or expecting?
Okay, so we talked about that, and that was a godly man. So then I think you went on to say, what about when things change?
Mhm.
So for me, when I said I do, I expected to die with my spouse and vice versa. So even when things changed, as long as it's not a faithful issue or such, you just you work through it. You have an open line of communication, and I feel like no one has to guess what the other one is thinking because you have the freedom to communicate. And so, even if it was a change, then a change with myself or a change with him, then we felt comfortable enough coming to each other and saying, I noticed you're doing this. What's the reasoning behind that? Or I'm noticing you're doing this and you don't normally do that. So we had a very good line of communication. So even when things changed, you got to understand where the change come from, because sometimes we could do stuff and we're not even aware of what we're doing. And so life pressure, the pressure with raising the children, anything can cause a change. But it was for me, and it still is for me, is as long as you got that communication piece where it is open communication on both ends, I don't feel like there's not any issues that can't be resolved if you're communicating like that. So that's where I am with that. Even now, I'm there now.
I've talked to many people throughout the years, and one of the things they will say, regardless of what the situation is, I'm in a dark, dark place, or I'm in a place where I don't want to be. Can any of you relate to that? Where you basically it's just darkness.
Yes. Well, that was my case with the very first, going through the very first marriage, and then the divorce, and to the point where I was diagnosed with chronic depression. And this is like bringing back all of those things. I mean, like, when you talk about it, it brings it to life. There is life in our words. And I truly believe that. So I was seeing the therapy like every day. I had to go and see the therapy daily. And then I got to a point where I only had to go once a week. And it was a blessing. But I think in my case, one, we were very young. And then two, I I had some personal issues that were brought on through family. And so I think, that played into everything. And it was just such it was a dark place. It was a very dark place. And even though I had family supporting me, it was, I just didn't feel like they understood. I didn't feel like they understood, even though and I don't, I think they wanted to help, but they didn't know how to help. And so, but yeah,
Let me
it was dark.
let's interject this up. Just as we can see now, this is still very emotional.
Yes.
how were the emotions? How were your emotions back then? Embarrassed, disappointed, shame, frustrated, uh, broken?
Well, I was broken. That first marriage, it really, you know, it broke me in a lot of places because when you put everything that you have into something and it doesn't work out, and then you're left with nothing because you gave it all away. And so it's like you don't have the strength for you anymore. And so that was my thing, that first one. But by the time I did learn a lot, because when I went through, and God blessed me so that the therapy that they connected me with was a Christian. And so she told me, like, once we got into the counseling, that she was going to do some things that she normally she doesn't do with her clients. And so but she would interject some spiritual aspects in the counseling, and to me that helped me a lot, just to and I think because in our mind we keep replaying all of those things that were happening, all of the things that went left. It's just on constant replay. And so one of the strategies that she taught me was just to take 15 minutes out of the day, or out at a point or a certain time of the day, and just think about those things, and then just let those things go, focus on the task that's at hand. And I think that helped me a lot. But yeah, I mean, like, but by the time, of course, it was 15 years before I even start dating again, because I had so much work I felt like to do on me. And so when I did remarry the second time, I knew how to let go. And I think with the first marriage, I didn't know how to let go, and I didn't want to let go. And letting go, or being cut off from something, I always feel uncomfortable. So I think, that was one of the keys to knowing how, when, and what to let go.
Anyone else?
Well, for me, yes, there were definitely um dark days. And it wasn't so much about me and my future. It was more so me and my children. Like, I can't play father and mother. I could, what I'm saying? That was the darkest part of it, is what about my children? That was, and I would cry for them, because now the future is so uncertain. Like, what type of message is this sending to my children? That's the biggest thing. Like, I can tell them every day, I trust in God. We trust in God. And when things don't go right, still, blessed be the name of the Lord. And I could give them all of those scriptures, but after all of the scriptures are said in a process, you still have a very real reality. So it was more of my dark days were, what how am I gonna be here for the kids? How am I gonna support the kids? Like, what do you say the reason why we're not a family anymore? What do you say when you can't look at daddy every day? And that was the thing for me. And so it took, and like Miss Pamela was saying, it took family, and family wanted to be there. I don't think they knew how. But when I really started to open up and just say, I don't know how to help my kids. Like, I don't know how to, like, I'm gonna be okay. I can be okay. But how can I get their little minds to accept this big transition with us? So it took one of my family members that had been through a divorce to literally sit with me every day and encourage me every day for probably about 2 to 3 months. And still try to give the kids a normal life. And so once I started to do that, things started to be good because the kids started accepting this is our new life and we got to try to be happy in this place. And I remember my sister made them laugh one time and I laughed. And the first time in about a year, I had heard myself laugh. I hadn't laughed in a year because I was so in such a dark place. But my sister was built for hardship, and God trusted her enough to give her everything she needed, both regular words of encouragement and both spiritual. And so it was a combination of both that pulled me out of that dark place. And when I came out of that dark place, it was 100% about my children at that point. Because even though they accepted a little bit of it, I know for me, accepting a new life was hard and they're children. So I knew it would be more difficult for them. So I did a lot of trying to be around my family and be as normal, if that's such a word, as I could, going through those dark days. But like I would say all the time, blessed be the name of the Lord. I don't care what it was, blessed be the name of the Lord. Even in uncertainty, it was blessed be the name of the Lord. And so I would say that Bible and my sister and the prayers of my family and my children, that's what pulled me out of that dark place.
Here's a tough one for you. What about forgiveness?
For me, forgiveness, and a lot of people thought that I didn't forgive or I wasn't I hadn't forgave, or I don't know what they thought, but they had me second guessing myself. But I forgave. I'm gonna tell you just how I looked at it, and it was easy for me to do. The person that I married became a different person because the person that I married would never do the things that the person that I was going through this divorce with would do. So I knew I had two different people I was dealing with, and I'm so serious. I had to separate that, and I had to know. And what I'm saying, like the Bible talks about pull off that old man. Well, I'm gonna tell you, I married, I married one man, but I'm gonna tell you, he got tired of that old man, and he pulled off of it and went. And I knew I was dealing with two different type people, so it was easy to forgive because we all have to make a choice. You understand? So if you make the wrong choice, that's just the choice you have to live with. Yes, I forgive you, but can we forget about it? I can't, because I got to grow from what I've been through. So I forgive. Yes, I forgive. And it wasn't hard for me to do at all. Because we dealing with two different people. We dealing with a person that loved the Lord with heart, body, mind. Everything was about God. But then in the end, it didn't matter anymore. So then I know I'm not dealing with the same person who said, I love the Lord and I'll die for the Lord. And so I was willing to forgive that and just move on from there. And so can we dap it up and all this other kind of stuff they be saying? No, we cannot. But I forgive you and I'm excusing you from my life. And so I mean that's just where I am. But yes,
Okay.
I forgave, but we're not gonna go back there. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because if that's what you wanted, you wouldn't have never got off into what you was into. So, you know, we okay on that. I forgive.
This is, I try to keep my podcast about 30 minutes. We're at 25 now, so we got about 5 or 6 more minutes. Again, we will come back and redo this, but we still got some more questions. To the other guests, did you have any comments on what was just said?
Yes, sir. I just want to say when you were saying what was my darkest moment is I was in a relationship and I got into the relationship a little too deep and I got out of my place with God. And so what I had done was I knew what I was doing wasn't right, but I chose to do it anyways. And it got to the place where I couldn't stay anymore. So I had to leave. And so when I left, I had already lost a lot of weight by the time I had left, size 0. And so when I left, it was hard to rest. It was hard to it was very hard. It was very, very hard and a very dark time in my life because it's a time where I actually thought that I was going to die. I actually could just feel myself knocking on death's door, but I made it. I made it, and I had to, like Sister Pam said, you have to just let go. You have to know what's best for you. So I had to let go, and so I did let go. And I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat. So I had to go to sleep saying, calling on Jesus. I had to call Jesus' name in order to come out of that dark place because I really didn't think I was going to come out. I thought I was going to lose my mind. I actually thought that I was not going to make it, but God. And I'm here today to tell you that God is good. And, you just have to get in that place and stay in that place. And, you have to ask God for what you want and he will bless. He will. You just live like he says and you ask, he will provide. He will definitely do that. And so that was my darkest moment. And as for the forgiveness that you were speaking on, Miss Tasha, it was very hard for me to forgive at first. Very, very hard because I didn't want to ask because you have to ask God for forgiveness and then you ask the person for forgiveness. That's the way I'm believing it's supposed to be. But I couldn't forgive. It's not that I couldn't. I just chose not to because if I had said, I forgive you, I wouldn't have meant it at that time. So I wanted to say it when I really meant it within my heart. I asked God to preserve me. I asked God to, Lord, just give me a chance. Just hold me over until I can forgive this man. And so he did, and I forgive him. And so I thank God for forgiveness to give. And, I just thank God for coming out.
It's going to be the last question. It's a tough one now. We're talking about toxic relationships. Did you bring any toxic characteristics into the relationship? Was there anything you did toxic or not healthy? And I think she just said she knew what she was doing.
Yes, sir. And that was time. It's all right.
So now last question. Y'all share your comments on that.
Well, I think like with the my first marriage, we were young, and so we just felt that if we loved each other and did what was right by each other, that would be enough. But finances, goals, communication, all of that stuff plays into a relationship. But what I can say about the both of them, I think my most toxic part was tolerating bad behavior. Because if you keep tolerating a thing, the person is going to keep doing it. And so I think that was my biggest thing that I could. Now, that first relationship, I will say, was I was, I'm not going to say it's a place for everything and everything should be in its place. I had some things, and we were young, so it was a lot uh, that played into that. But as far as bringing in all of that toxic uh, communication or actions, I think with me, what I brought in was tolerance.
Anyone else?
I'm gonna just tell you what they told me. They used to always, me personally, I try to live my life and mirror it by the Bible. And that's what I do. That's the corrective piece for me. So I'm always, everything I do, I'm like, do this line up with the Bible. So I'm looking for my reflection out of the Bible. And that's what they would tell me. Like, I think I'm so perfect. I think I'm so right. I think I'm so holy. And all I want to do is please God. I mean, that's all my life. I have only tried to please God. And still, after I enter into another relationship, he told me the same thing. He was like, you think you perfect. No, I just try to live according to what the Bible said. That's all I know to do. I can't measure myself up to anybody else. But what I can do is try to live like the Bible tells me to live. And that's all now there's error in that. That's gonna be news to me. Somebody gonna have to correct me. But that was what I was told. My biggest problem was I'm too righteous. I'm too holy. I think I'm too perfect. And all I try to do is I don't want to go to hell, because I'm telling you, it's just wrong down here on earth, and I don't want to go through nothing else. No, not when I die. I want to be with Jesus, and that's all that my life has ever been about, is trying to please God. And I felt like if I please God, I could please my husband, I could raise my children right, I could be a good friend, I could be a good Christian, and that's all I know. I could have other flaws, but they didn't say that. It's always been that. So
All right. Our other guest.
Yes, sir. I can agree with Miss Pam on the tolerating. But I came to realize that in tolerating, there's no good end. So what you have to do is, like I said, do what's best for you and what's right. So I had to just go ahead on and not tolerate, because when you go along and just tolerate, it's not a good end to that. So why put yourself through the stress and through those type of things in this life on that type of stuff? So tolerating is out for me. I just want righteous. It's not gonna last. If it's not right, it's not gonna last. So that's how I feel on that.
can I just add one more thing to that?
Yes, ma'am.
So because I was raised so in the church the way I was raised, I don't think tolerate was the word that I would use. I would say submissive, because that's what it always was. I was just submissive to my husband, submissive. But I have learned through that is the more submissive I was, the more submissive I was asked to be. And I just think that was the thing. So I wouldn't say I tolerated. I would say I was just submissive, and I felt that was the way that things should have been, is I should be submissive to my husband. And so I would swap out tolerate for submissive, because that's what my thing was. It's the submissive part.
Let me just say something on that point. Seems like you may have been taken advantage of.
I think I was. I think that's what I've got going into other relationships is I gotta be careful and know the difference in being taken advantage of versus being submissive. And even with them saying tolerating, I have to be careful not to tolerate. So it's a growing, you learn a lot. Life teaches us a lot. Some lessons can be told, but some you have to live through and share.
Ladies,
And
I do
Pastor,
appreciate you all.
just one quick comment from me. To me, tolerate and submission is two different things to me. And so we can talk about that in another section, but yeah, to me, it's two different things.
Dr. Stevens, do you have any comments you want to make as we get ready to bring this to an end?
Well, first of all, I appreciate the candor. Um, Candor makes it a lot easier to grow, and I agree that some things in life would teach you a lot. And sad part about it, I guess one of my indictments against the church leadership is I think we can do a lot better job in preparing people for marriage. And I believe we could do a lot better job because I think too many people go into marriage with fantasies. And I always teach the 3 R's when I work with couples. And without being too lengthy on this, I'll just mention the 3 R's that I referred to as the first one is romance. When people meet one another, they're excited about the new relationship. They can find no fault in the person. They always get the best version of the person, the hairstyle, the nails. The man has a haircut, clean shirt. Everybody puts their best foot forward, and that can last from a few months into the relationship on into marriage. And but then you're going to sooner or later hit that point where you reach the second R, and that's what I call the reality stage. Reality stage is a place where you begin to see the other person's flaws. You begin to see the deficiencies. You begin to see that they have anger issues. You begin to see that they are not as tidy as you are. You begin to see that they quit jobs when you think they should stick with the job. You begin to see that they're not really good with money, and when they get agitated, they don't communicate very well. But that's the reality stage, and that's what most people break up at. That's why you see some marriages so short, because when the reality hits, a lot of people are not equipped to handle it. Me personally, I don't believe love is enough, because I believe people have different definitions of love. We sometime in Christian circles talk about different kinds of love and focus on the agape side. And when I think eros love is one of them that we cannot excuse. And matter of fact, people who come to me about about premarital counseling is one of the things I ask them is, do they look good to you? And people always pause when I ask that question. See, early on in our recording today, Pastor Stallworth asked the very first question: what did you look for? I've been married almost 38 years. And to be honest with you, I grew up in the church. I'm the kid who went to tent meetings with sawdust in my hair. And I mean, I grew up in the church. But when I was looking for a wife, I was a man. She had to look good to me. I didn't want to know about her church attendance. I didn't even want to know if she loved God. She got to look good to me. You understand? I don't want to pray all the time. Quit playing with me. I don't want to go to church today. I want to sleep in today.
And Dr. Stevens, that's Dr. Stevens.
Don't play with me. No. But I think that's where we live, because remember, when we get born again, one of the things we have to go through is a period of discipleship. We have to learn to manage our flesh. We have to learn to focus on things that are more important than our fleshly desires. And that's where I was. If she don't look good, she don't get a ring. I don't care how much she go to church. I don't care how much she can pray long prayers. It didn't matter to me. I had to be interested in her physically. And so I think the church needs to really do a better job in being transparent about what makes a marriage work, because I don't believe love is enough. I think we have to have principles. I love what my sister said when she said that the first marriage was one thing, but she had that 15-year window where she learned some stuff. And I think one of the things that she learned was some principles. And those principles helped prepare her to move forward. And I think that's one of the things that's lacking, because principles are critically important in everything we do. You know, you can have $500,000, you want to build a brand new house, but unless you got a contractor who knows how to read a measuring tape, a man who knows how to estimate a job, a person who knows how many shingles he's going to need to put on the roof, that $500,000 can disappear real quick, because there may not be enough money. You got to be able to build based upon principles that are proven. Now, my last comment is that hot button word called submission. You know, over the years, I don't know how many men have come to me and complained, talking about their wife won't submit. I typically respond to, why should she? What the Bible say? I said, yeah, and the Bible says some things you should do as well. Well, she's supposed to submit. Yeah, I hear what you're saying. But let me share a little secret with you, homeboy. A woman will not submit to a man if she doesn't feel comfortable that he is equipped to protect her from the consequences of his decisions. In other words, he has to have a track record. He has to have a track record of handling the business of his life and family life, his money, his decision making. Otherwise, she is afraid to submit to his leadership because she don't know if things going to go sideways or not, because his track record bad. His track record ain't good. But if he has a track record and she's a godly woman, she'll be easier. It's easier for her to submit because she have to admit, yeah, he said XYZ and he came through. He told me not to worry about XYZ. Yeah, and he handled it. Well, maybe I ought to let him handle it this time, because he did do it last time. That will cause her to sleep better. That'll cause her to believe that he can handle it, even though things don't look well, because that godly man who says, don't worry about it. That godly man who is not just a church guy. I mean, I'm not impressed with a guy who just goes to church. I want to see what you do. I want to see what happens when you ain't at church. How do you handle business? You know, and if he is consistent in the way he handles things, a godly woman should not have a problem submitting to his leadership. But it's on him to develop a track record. If his life is not an example of godly leadership and the way he treats her and treats the kids and his reliability and him bringing his check home and him paying the bills like he's supposed to, a woman is not willing to leave herself and her kids vulnerable to him. She's just not. And I understand it. I understand it. And, you know, this conversation about submission has even moved over into the dating arena. And There's no way I'd tell my daughter to submit to her boyfriend. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? I'm her daddy. She submit to my leadership until I give her to another man who has demonstrated the ability, the courage, and the skills to be able to cover and protect her like I did. What you doing submitting to your boyfriend? He has not committed to you. He's not in a covenant with you. So I don't believe in that submission thing to your boyfriend. Well, she need to learn how to submit, and we, while we dating, homeboy, check yourself. You have not made a commitment to her. So why should she allow herself to be totally vulnerable to you? So submission is not a bad thing. And the last thing is this. We can all do better in the things that we say and how we say it. If we'll think before we speak. Believe it or not, my wife and I have never had an argument. Almost 38 years of marriage. Never had an argument. Never. We've had disagreements, but we've never had a shouting match and going back and forth and foul language and insulting names. Never, ever. Because I learned a long time ago that people say things when they have disagreements that they can't take back. And I never wanted to hurt my wife with my words because I don't know how long it would take for her to recover from it. I love her too much to say things that's going to harm her emotionally because I don't know if I can ever bring her back from that place. And so, yeah, if we think before we speak, we may recognize that some stuff ain't even worth saying. Who wants to win the quote unquote argument and lose the relationship? That's not wisdom. And now you're trying to pull it back in and say, I didn't mean it. What? But you said it. Words are so powerful. They cut deep. They cut deep. We've seen that. Most of us have seen that in our children, where kids have been really hurt by something we said in anger, and we have to love on them and bring them back. And I always looked at my wife in a way where I said, no, I never wanted to say anything to her in a way that would harm her emotionally. And now I got to go fix it. No telling how long it's going to take to fix it. Times when we've disagreed on stuff, I listen to her story. I share my ideas. But then comes the submission piece. I got a track record. She's never fouled me on a decision about leading the home, making purchases, doing anything like that. Never. I listen to her input. She's an educated woman, articulate, vocabulary definitely wider than mine. But we don't do that. Always think before you speak, because recovering from it, I'm telling you, it's hard. It's hard. So those are my comments and my observations. I appreciate you giving me a chance to share. And, conversations like this can be quite useful if people are willing to be transparent like you've been today, because we all have blind sides. And, there are some folks who've gone through stuff that can help us go through what we're facing right now if we only have trusted partners and friends who will be vulnerable and who we can be vulnerable with. So God bless you and keep up the good work, Pastor Gerald.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you all again. We'll have a part 2. I'll leave it up to you all as to when that will be, but I really got like 2 or 3 questions, and of course we had more than that. Let's have a word of prayer. Thank you to God for allowing us this opportunity. We ask right now to continue to encourage our hearts. In Jesus' name we do pray. And